due to the traditional NES, or at least the megas around Mega Man 9 and 10. So kind of perfect that we're going to be leaning to this block when we get to the more retroized Mega Man games. But I think we can go ahead and just skip all the other talking, just get straight to the run. You ready, RF?
All right, count me down, bro.
All right, then let's get it cracking. So starting in five, four, three, two, one, go. Alrighty then, so here we go. Starting with Mega Man Rock and Roll. So of course, for this game, we actually start off with an intro stage. The story of this game is thus follows. There's this some monstrosity of a craft or a ship of some kind that's risen overseas and just started taking out and kidnapping a whole bunch of robots. As you can see, there's actually Honey Woman, Skullman, and several more that's wound up getting captured along the way. Some of them you may recognize, some of them you may not. But this is your basic general intro stage where you get to be introduced to Mega Man, getting used to his mechanics, and next up, it's actually the true star of this game, and it's particularly the speedrun Roll. So now, here's the thing about Roll. She is the de facto speedrun character of this game. So the thing about the difference between the two, she takes a little more damage than Mega Man. She cannot charge like Mega Man. They both slide, but the thing that makes her very, very good for speedruns is she winds up being created with a double jump thanks to a little jetpack that she got installed when she willingly takes the helm for combat after Mega Man gets captured along with Proto Man. So this is basically what the intro stage does, just gives you the general mechanics between both Rock and Roll. And after you get done with Roll section, you continue the rest of the intro stage with Mega Man, and please continue to wave and say bye-bye to Mega Man, because this is literally the last time you're going to be seeing him until you reach the actual end game. Because like we said, Roll is the official star of this speedrun. So once again, just going through the rest of the intro stage here, and then we're gonna just continue on with the gameplay proper. So while RF is finishing the intro stage, I'm gonna talk about a little bit of the routing. The routing of this game is actually gonna be in weakness order. So we're gonna be starting, of course, after we swap Roll. You can switch between Rock and Roll in between stages, and we're gonna start with Dune Woman. Dune Woman is the stage that we're starting with. It's one of the stages where we really don't need many items or weapons to get by it fast, and it also gives you probably one of the strongest weapons from the get-go of the game, in which you'll see later. So as you can see, a whole bunch of double jumping, a whole bunch of sliding, and general mechanics. So in Dune Woman stage, you can just be mostly just doing just simple platforming. There's nothing really too special about this stage. Just gotta notice about some of the stage gimmicks, such as the sand blocks that will be destroyed whether you either shoot at them or stand on them. Of course, since this is a desert stage, you got quicksand along the way. Also, shout outs to these Fez mechs, by the way. Very cute design for these particular mechs. So continuing on, it's just a lot of basic platforming. As you can see, you can also slide off of ledges and recover with a double jump. Just a quick note, you rather want to jump onto the ledges rather than try to slide onto them. Sliding onto ledges over a certain height is kind of wonky. There is an explanation for it that I have asked about, but I'm not gonna get too into it. It's kind of a bit complex, but you get the gist as Resistingframe flies through the stage as we go to one of the most RNG heavy bosses, even though she's one of the first bosses in the entire run. For Dune Woman, you do not want her to go into the sands. She goes into the sands for quite a bit of time, and you don't want to get hit by her main attack, which is the Desert Storm that you see her spin around and makes her try to suck Roll in. It's a very powerful suction, so you got to get some distance so you don't get caught into it. Because if you do, as you saw earlier, she will fly up into the air for about a second, second and a half, and that's precious time wasted for Roll to get some much needed shots in. So right now, kind of a
She really loved that sand today, man.
yeah. She's one of the roughest fights, and you got to fight her from the very beginning. Times early on can pretty much just set the tone for how the run's going to be, but overall, RF managed to handle it very well for all the carnage that she produces. But yeah, like we said, this is the main reason why we start with Roll in this stage. The Desert Storm is by far one of the best attacks in the entire game. It's a combination. If I had to say, it's like the charged tornado from X mixed with the screen clearing abilities. Well, not quite screen clearing, but the abilities of the tornado blow from Mega Man 9, where it just blows away enemies that gets into it. So Missile Man stage. Missile Man, another one of those generally straightforward stages. The only thing that you really got to be careful is this is the conveyor based stage, so you got to know how to deal with moving with the conveyors. But also this stage also has a lot of crushers, hydraulic presses that you got to be really mindful of. So with some good movement, you can easily outrun some of them. It's going to come into play much later towards the end of the stage as far as cycles go to try to beat the stage as quickly as possible. So yeah, got some time bombs. Time bombs really not too much of an obstacle, but you just gotta manage your timing with the bombs. Of course, blowing them up so they can be out of the way since they are platform hazards or blockades. And you saw just right there the Desert Storm in action. Taking out some of those mini attackers.
Too early of a jump. Why?
Ooh. Pretty nasty. Of course, since this is a PC game, you gotta deal with some of the control shenanigans that this game actually has every so often. But it could have been much. Well, technically, he was just literally screens away from another checkpoint. So, yeah. Not the best of that.
There's nowhere. Here's a checkpoint.
But anyway, just going through these footholders here, going by all these areas. Thankfully, these footholders are not like the Mega Man 1 footholders. They are on a set pattern. They're not random. So you're pretty much just free to move as much as you please, but you still gotta watch out for all the obstacles that come your way, and also the fires they shoot at you. And of course, here's the final stretch with the hydraulic presses, making sure that you're moving on time so you can make specific cycles. So right now, this is pretty much well done up to this point. Missile Man, on the other hand, kind of a bit of an RNG boss, but not as bad as Dune Woman. There are points where he turns into a big missile and runs to the other side, and at that time, he is completely invulnerable. You want him to stay as open as much as possible, but also with the weakness, which is the Desert Storm, you got to get in a specific position where you can actually hit Missile Man 2 times per Desert Storm attack. And that was pretty much well done on Resistingframe's end. As far as that's still pretty much a solid stage overall.
Minus that one hiccup. I'm gonna call it the first step jitters. So we got the first step out the way.
Yeah, this game is actually really no joke. But this game is probably one of the hardest Mega Man fan games that are pretty much out there, and yet it's still probably one of the best ones. Really well done, really clever this level design for the most part. And we're about to get Rush. what you didn't know that we actually don't start off with Rush Coil. Similar to the mechanics with the Rush items in Mega Man's 9 and 10, after a certain number of levels, you will get specific Rush items or another specific item for a roll, which is very important for the routing of the run. So you get items after every 2, 4, and 6 bosses. For the first two bosses, you get Rush Coil, and we'll get something really special for a roll after dealing with 4 bosses. But for now, we're about to go to probably one of my personal favorite stages, especially for its soundtrack, Tight Man stage. And you'll notice right from the get-go that weapons play a huge part in this run. And also, you notice that RF is using a very interesting means of weapon swapping. Taking the cue from Mega Man 11, the game is actually built in with an inbuilt weapon wheel. So if you use your control stick, your R3 button, and that stick, you can actually, just like in Mega Man 11, swap weapons in that kind of way. So you got that, your normal shoulder swaps with L and R, and for those that are keyboard users, there are actually specific keys specifically on your number pad that is designated to each weapon. So you got multiple ways of actually trying to perform weapon swaps in this entire game. I'm personally a shoulder swapper, but it's all the preference. Also,
Yeah,
definitely
preference, definitely.
Shoutouts to the bait health and actually getting the health after being this anglerfish robot, which kind of takes the inspiration from Mega Man 2. It does fire out shrimps, and the little part where you get the health is the weak point, using the combination of the blast missile, which you got from Blast Man, and the Desert Storm. You got to take him out quickly. So, continuing on as RF getting a little close there, making his way close to Tide Man. Tide Man is actually one of the easier bosses to deal with, as you see Tide Man's silhouette actually getting behind the screen. But Tide Man is actually a very simple boss. Pretty simple with the Buster, but even easier with the Blast Missile. So right now we actually get a really good pattern. You want fish, you actually want to start with small fish no matter what. You want small fishes to be fired at any given moment. That gives you the most time to actually plug them with blast missiles. And then you probably would like to have an anchor, which you didn't get to see, or fire those 2 big fishes along the way. If you wind up using the shield bubble, which is the weapon that Ro's about to get, you're gonna have to do a little bit of chasing down, and that's a little bit of a time sink. But like I said, with the blast missile, it pierces through the bubbles and it just makes Tide Man all the more easier. If you want a robot master to start with, Tide Man is definitely one of the ones that would be good to start with if you want to get into the game. So now that we got shield bubble, which is another extremely good weapon, very good shield weapon, very durable, and can one-shot quite a number of enemies that are along the way. We're gonna go to Drake Bear, which is I'm gonna keep on with the commentary. It looks like we got ourselves some stream delay, but go ahead and keep going. So continuing on with the stage, we're gonna have hopefully continue on with some proper uses of all the weapons that RF has done so far. Okay, it looks like we're back now. He hadn't missed too much. Just RF just doing his thing, using all the weapons that he got so far. Getting ourselves some good bit of platform action. A very solid Drake-Man stage. You're going to be very weapon tight, because by this point you want to make sure that you have enough shield bubble ammo to take on Drake Man. And for Drake Man, You actually got a pretty good pattern stuck up to the walls for a good little bit of time. So yeah, seven shield bubbles. Make sure you have enough to do it because you're gonna be pretty tight on ammo, and just plug them with the shield bubble, and you got the next weapon, which is a very cute weapon in the flame breath. I'm gonna let the actual weapon speak for itself because it's actually really adorable.
The mouth. Oh man.
Literally spitting hot fire. Of course, there's also just for a little trivia, there's also little extra added information for times when she's actually out of fire breath. But I'm gonna let you find that out for yourselves. In the meantime, we actually have 4 of our robot masters defeated, and now we're gonna get Rose's utility item, which is the beat left. Shout out to Dr. Cossack and H. Kalinka, just helping to make beat as literally broken as possible, because this is another reason why Roll is much superior to Mega Man in this game as far as platforming goes. It's kind of a little bit of some Rockman and Forte syndrome where the stages seem to work better with Forte. It's pretty much the same for Roll in this regard. Double jump plus beat left just makes the entire game it just makes it really easy for her. Not just saying that the game is built for her. Mega Man can do these stages just as well, but with beat lift, double jumping, and all this other stuff, it makes the game borderline easy mode as far as platforming goes. As we see RF going to Polar Woman, which is your standard ice level, with some wells that, if you're kind of thinking Super Mario Brothers 2 US, yeah, you kind of get those vibes. But yeah, be careful of some of those spouts. As you can see, some of them can be on cluster spikes, so you got to be careful of the timing. So yeah, another one of those general straightforward stages. And using the shield bubble in action to negate some of the platforming. Those icicles are supposed to be used, you shoot them down, and they act like floating platforms to get across the water. But thanks to the shield bubble's utility of actually floating on water, you can just bypass all of that nonsense and just continue on. Once again, using B to just ignore as much platforming as possible, utilizing shield bubble. As you can see, the shield bubble is very strong. It can pretty much one-shot most small enemies and not blow up. If you take it to a Buster account, it takes 6 Buster shots to the equivalent of such to destroy the shield bubble. And the shield bubble does do splash damage upon burst. Anyway, for Polar Woman, of course, we're going to use Fire Breath. That's the weakness. When she pirouettes, when she skates at you, she always pirouettes a little bit close to you so you can slide under her. If you're feeling uncomfortable with the timing, at least for Roll, you can always double jump over it. You cannot just flat out jump over her. But yeah, with some pretty clever Fire Breath shots, she can be a little RNG based. She does have some attacks where it's hard to hit her, but Polar Woman goes down in a snap and you get the Snow Roller, which kind of your chargeable weapon of the game.
You see me rolling. Just kidding. Alright, let's see.
Yeah, they hating. They hating alright.
Oh man.
But seriously, yeah, you can also use the Snow Roller to freeze enemies and use them as platforms. So a little bit of extra utility for the Snow Roller. Okay, so Reactor Man stage. Who here likes quick laser beams? Those force beams. Because that's going to be what you're going to be seeing for a lot of the stage here. This stage is basically your quick man stage with some relatively balanced stuff that's along the way. Oh, got me a little worried here. But yeah, as you expect, the lasers are instant death, so we're going to want to avoid them as much as possible. Very good uses of beat and the shield bubble. There are other ways to do it, but that is one of the ways that I've seen other people do it. I personally use the fire breath to do it just as fast. Not sure which side is faster, hadn't timed it all, but I believe both of them are just as fast as each other, so no real difference here. Also, be careful, those disco balls, they actually do reflect the lasers that are coming across, extending with a specific radius, and they do instant kill. You can, as you saw just a little while ago, just a few moments ago, they can be destroyed with the blast missiles, so you can safely traverse the rest of the area. So the rest of the stage is pretty much just a blitz towards the end, making sure to avoid all the lasers and getting rid of all the enemies as possible to try to safely get to our Reactor Man fight. And of course, it's not over because of course we gotta have pitfalls along the way. So once again, careful with the navigations. Of course, shout out to the platforms that do actually block these lasers. So a pretty hardcore stage, one of the rougher stages, but once you learn the layout of the stage and how the lasers work with the platforms, it's not as bad as you think, but it's definitely intimidating on first stretch. Meanwhile, Reactor Man is actually equally as intimidating. He has a variety of high damaging attacks, and of course, he also hits like a truck just like all the other Robot Masters. But with the Snow Roller, doing proper DPS of the smaller ones, you can actually freeze him with the large charged Snow Roller, but it also takes time to charge, and you gotta wait for him to defrost for a little bit in order to get the next hit in. So you're pretty much gonna be doing a DPS race between yourself and Reactor Man with the uncharged Snow Roller in order to get a fast kill. So what you get for defeating Reactor Man in this case, you get the charge laser, which is pretty much a string charged laser that does drain energy upon hold use. I do not recommend mashing it. Mashing the charge laser only drains it all the faster. Not to mention, since we defeated 6 Robot Masters, now we got the Rush Jet. But of course, at this point, we already got all we need. So you pretty much won't be seeing Rush Jet until we get to some other stuff later on. But for now, we're gonna go with Ghost Woman. So here's the thing about Ghost Woman. The thing is kind of a little bit special. The thing about Ghost Woman, and actually a few other stages that are similar, they actually have diverting paths. For this particular run, we're going to be moving into a secret waterfall here, and you see some very familiar looking enemies. So this is what's going on here. We're actually going to be fighting one of the kidnapped Robot Masters. In this case, we're fighting Skull Man. For this is actually just to save time for what's coming up later on. So if you want to do 100% for the game, you're going to have to find all 4 Robot Masters, kidnap Robot Masters, and fight them in respective stages. However, that's going to be something for you to find out, because that's going to add some more content to the game, which I'm going to spoil for you guys. You're going to have to play for yourself, everyone. But yeah, continuing on with Ghost Woman, this stage is kind of a tricksy stage. You got to do a lot of tricky platforming. You saw some areas where the spikes rise up. You already saw that. We pretty much got that later. So here's the Belfry boss. Destroy the gears as quickly as possible. The Fire Blast pretty much just makes that area a complete cakewalk if you're able to take care of it as quickly as possible. Also, as a side note, as RF continues to pretty much burst through the rest of the stage, you also notice that there are plate letters that are in the 8 Robot Master stages. If you collect all 8, there are actually 2 separate additions that you get for Rock and for Roll separately. If you get the Roll plates, you get an extra double jump for Roll, and for the Rock letters, you actually get a boosted charge shot. Alright, so we're dealing with Ghost Woman. The charge laser actually decimates her. But she's a little bit orangey. You kind of want her to stay in the windows. Otherwise, you're gonna have to deal with a little bit of a waiting period before she literally just appears out of nowhere, fires her soul trap, as you saw already, and she winds up just rushing you. But overall, still a pretty solid fight. Well done, RF.
The jitters are still there. This, I was actually my original idea was to try to commentate this, but like I couldn't do it. I couldn't play and talk about the game at the same time. It's impossible.
This is seriously an intense run. I can easily relate. You actually helped me doing commentating at one point when I did this game for another marathon or special event. So let's just say trading of favors as we go to Beetle Lady, where we got pretty much one of the most enemy clustered stages in the entire game, with a whole bunch of insects. You already see a little bit more references to Mega Man 4 enemies with the caterpillar enemies. Kind of a little bit of a unfortunate death there, but we'll recover. It's still very early in the stage. Once again, using weapons to make things as simple as possible. Shield Bubble once again showing how good it is. Using the blast missile to destroy rocks for these beetle riders to not bulldoze the rock, just making the area traverse a little bit faster. So once again, a majority of this stage is just a lot of proper weapon usage throughout the entire game. Weapon usage is very important in this run, and you're pretty much just seeing it throughout the entire game, seeing that very wise and very useful. Desert Storm uses not too long ago, using beat to fly over gaps and made platforms shorter. And of course the end where it just literally throws everything at you. Acorns, beetles, caterpillars, spiders. Just a complete enemy rush over a pitfall towards the end of the stage where Beetle Lady awaits. Which was very well done. It's a very hectic and scary area, and RF managed to do it very, very well. Beetle Lady, on the other hand, she should be really simple to do as long as you don't miss soul traps. The soul trap encases smaller enemies, and when it encases them, the soul trap actually becomes stronger, which is why for the Beetle Lady fight, you want to encase her primary weapon, which is the beetle drones, and send them right back to her for max damage. You can do the smaller shots for 2, and you do make those shots in for a few shots, but in the end, just a pretty solid, simple fight. So, here's the situation as we see fit. Right now, all 8 robos are done. And now we're about to go to the structure here.
Just checking how many lives I have.
So this stage is a little special. You start off with Rogue, but you notice now we're seeing Mega Man here. From here on now, playing as Mega Man is now going to be very, very relevant for the end game. We'll explain a little bit later for their specific areas, but for this particular part of the stage, for this structure here, it's going to be a bit of a two-parter. So right now, you're seeing Roll just traverse one part of the area. You get to the boss room, but all of a sudden you're trapped. You can't get out, there's no way to get in. And surprise! Mega Man makes his triumphant return after pretty much letting her sister do all the work. But yeah, this is where trying to remember how Mega Man plays is going to be pretty important in knowing the differences between the two. Because from here on out, both Mega Man and Rogue will be vital towards finishing the game. So you're going to have to use all your elements as Mega Man, as well as the stuff you're already known with Rogue throughout the entire game, and go through the rest of the game proper. And a very good shot there to get an extra hit. So for the ICU-2, and that is the actual canon name, you're going to be using Roll for hopefully the entire fight, just plugging them with blast missiles, and just there you go, a very solid fight. So okay, ICU-2 destroyed. The structure that's been kidnapping all the robots. Just basically.
Anybody a fan of the Mets?
Well, the structure was destroyed until we find out yet again Wily was behind the plot. So yeah, Resistingframe actually does raise a very profound question, because right now you don't see him right now, but after this little stretch of platforming, we're gonna have a little bit of Mega Man 4 Wily 1 vibe. Because we're gonna be seeing a crap ton of Mets that's gonna be just littered throughout the area. And the main deal is you're gonna be needing quite a bit of weaponry to traverse the area as quickly as possible. Like I say, using the shield bubble to negate the electric sparks that are along the way and help destroy a few enemies. Using Soul Trap to trap a few enemies along the way as well. But you're gonna notice that some of these enemies do run in cycles. So you gotta know a little bit of your cycle work for some of the Met dispensers that are on the conveyor belts. Also, you notice that there's a little bit of a side path. There are 4 main Wily stages that have these side paths, but since we're doing 80%, we're not gonna be worrying about them. Once again, you're gonna have to play the game for yourself in order to find out why this is happening. But in the meanwhile, we're just gonna go through the rest of the stage in a very tough compact section where, as long as you get good timing, you shouldn't get crushed. And there we go. So, after such an intense stage, we got probably one of the roughest bosses in the entire game. And it's not an easy one to do correctly, especially with a weakness as kind of unwieldy as the Soul Trap. Because the thing about the Soul Trap is, in order to angle it in a proper direction, you're actually bumping into it. And the direction you're bumping into it is going to be the direction where the charged Soul Trap fires. And the hitbox of it is very finicky, which makes for a very rough means to try to do a good clean fight. And Resistingframe, unfortunately, is kind of getting the business thanks to it.
I am doing bad.
Nah, you're doing fine. It's not your fault that this fight is a thing.
Oh my goodness, man. I don't like Soul Trap.
Yeah, it's a very weapon to kind of control, especially for a fight that's basically mostly Met armor, because the Met grabber actually has very few vulnerable spots. It's supposed to hit it in the eye, and the Soul Trap does negate most of its iframes, but yeah, it's kind of But yeah, after dealing with Mega Man, now you're dealing with Roll. The main gimmick of the Wily stage is that you're actually going to be playing and swapping between Rock and Roll between Wily stages, at least for 4 of them. They're going to converge later on in the Wily Castle stages, but for the first 4, you're going to be doing 2 stages with Rock and 2 stages with Roll. So this is pretty much Roll's portions, and for Roll's portions, they really emphasize a lot of Roll's movement mechanics. So you're gonna see a lot of double jumping, a lot of beat uses. This is pretty much just gonna be really hardcore platforming as far as Roll's concerned. Slight miss with the blast missile there, but still able to recover. Once again, you may want to move fast, but consistent platforming will always trump just trying to blitz through the entire game willy-nilly, think you're gonna hit everything, because sometimes getting overconfident can wind up leading to your death. So just a few more platforming elements. Of course, you're seeing part of the stage gimmick that RF is ignoring. there are switches that turn on and turn off specific platforms, and it does come to a play close to the end because there is a troll button that can be fired, that the one that RF just passed, where it literally blocks your path and puts you right into the instant death plasma. So, our next boss, which is Big Bull. Actually, I'm not gonna say anything about it. I'm gonna let the fight speak for itself, so everyone enjoy what was a boss fight.
Plow.
So
my two
yeah.
least favorite stages coming up.
So yeah, the actual weakness is supposed to be the Desert Storm. You're supposed to get inside the bowl and fire a Desert Storm and you get popped out. But the thing about it is, if you continue firing the charge laser, it's supposed to heal the big bulb, but if you actually keep on doing it, you'll actually overcharge it and it just kills it. So yeah, easy speedrun material. So, for the weapon depot, this stage can be very intense as Mega Man. A lot of rough platform over pits with these explosive boxes that can be destroyed with certain weapons. And of course, some areas are darkened, but fortunately, the developer was kind not to put any instant death traps in here. Just a little bit of blind platforming though. So for the most part, it's technically a bit of a simple romp. Some underwater sections come a little close there. Unfortunately, the trade damage prevented falling to the abyss. But yeah, just pretty much a simple romp until you get close to the end, where the explosive boxes make a very, very rough and ruthless comeback. And knowing how to platform that specific area is gonna be very key to survival, because it's a very dangerous and very crucial run breaking point. There we go, very well done. I've seen a lot of players get walled by this area, especially since it's over, you know, life-ending pits. And say goodbye to Anti-Eddie, another Mega Man 11 reference. Speaking of references, unfortunately we don't have zips in this game, so we're gonna have to do a bit of a slide of shame here. Once again, reminiscent of Mega Man 1 Wily 3. And to complete that reference, we got ourselves the Bubble Boss. CWU-02P, pretty much a 7-phase fight where each phase changes every time you destroy a bubble form. There are multiple ways you can do this fight very quickly, but the most traditional way is actually using a charged snow roller to freeze it and then using a missile to blow it up. There are other ways to do it, such as using a buster to force some phases, and of course this final phase, like you can use the Desert Storm to get rid of some of the mines that are buster immune, and then use a charge laser to get some rapid fire shots in. Pretty solid fight, pretty much close down to health, but still very well done. But of course, that still holds nothing to one of my favorite stages.
No! I'm gonna take, since I think I'm up to my final life, I'm gonna take the death, the game over death. I don't trust this stage.
Well, this stage is a bit of a doozy, as you saw on the actual map screen from Dr. Wally's castle map. This stage is gonna be a bit special. Welcome everyone to this game's version of Purple Hell, which is called the Research Labs. And this stage is gimmicky as crap, and I love it for it. So, first off, say hello to screen wrapping. Screen wrapping plays a vital form in some of these stages, but of course, like in some areas, you can actually use beat to negate some of them. And of course, we got Yoku Blocks. This is the premier Yoku Block stage in the game, and also got Devils. So Yoku Blocks, Devils is some interesting stage interlay and interface. So this stage pretty much put Roll's platforming ability to its upper limits. So you better be on your game, knowing all the stuff that's going on in this stage, and your roll execution's got to be on point.
Which is not for me.
It's a rough stage. It's one of those stages that really pushes you as far as how to utilize Roll, her movements, know how to use B properly, and of course, knowing the layouts and how the stage is, pretty much just tries to warp your senses to trying to mentally just phase you and just pretty much trying to impede your progress in one way, shape, or form. There we go, just if you can't move fast, always just try to keep it simple. Just keep it for a moment. Yes.
Oh man, so this is definitely one of the harder stages. Very scary stuff, going up and down, side to the side.
And it only continues up. Yeah, had to take care of a small IRL thing, but as you can see, now everything is basically upside down. If you saw the actual screen map beforehand this stage, you saw a row flip upside down. But what actually is flipped upside down is everything else, not you. So this is actually your anti-gravity segment of the game. So trying to navigate upside down stuff, navigating the screen wraps, everything in this stage just literally throws so many platforming games at you. It's actually kind of interesting, and it all leads down to this. Say hello to the Yoku Devil. So fortunately for you, there are no pits. This stage literally has no pits. There are no pitfalls in this stage, so you don't have to worry about falling. You just continuously loop around forever. However, you're still gonna have to keep yourself adjusted for this fight because you're gonna be moving around quite a bit. And
I didn't know I had the E-Tank. Oh my goodness.
It happens. You were in the moment. But unfortunately, you're kind of out of the weakness weapon, so now you're gonna have to do this fight Buster only. And it's a pretty lengthy fight, but fortunately, you are capable of destroying these other fake Yoku blocks. Well, you can't stand on them, but the smaller ones that shoot turrets, you can destroy them to make them easier. But you still pretty much now gotta make sure that you know where you're going, especially if you wind up looping rapping across the screen. For now, RF is still doing a pretty solid Buster only fight. You still gotta remember that you can't take too much damage. Roll is more fragile than Mega Man. She takes one more unit of damage than him, so you can only take so much damage as compared to Mega Man. Right now, so far so good.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness!
Buster only. Shout outs to Kame and Ratson.
So yeah, at this point, this is where the routing between Rock and Roll actually converge. And this is where actually meeting the Robot Masters in the 8 Robos actually come to play. You saw Skullman and Ghostwoman stage. This is where it winds up actually adding up. Because the thing is, if you don't fight those 4 Robot Masters in the stages prior to this stage, you're going to be forced to fight each and every single one of them. And one of them is Fireman. And Fireman has a few tricks up his sleeve, but with a few good snow roller pops, he shouldn't be too bad. So yeah, so once again, just continue on, do these small little stages, and like I said, you're gonna have to fight all 4 of them if you didn't save them all. Roll has 2, Rock has 2. You saw the first one for Rock, now for the second one. Say hello to the dummied out Mega Man 9 boss, Honey Woman, who was later changed to Hornet Man, but yeah, it's basically Hornet Man. Pretty much does the Hornet Chaser in similar fashion, but she does have extra attacks like the Sticky Honey and a Stinger attack. And from there, Rock's part done. But like we said, this is where they just all converge. So now you gotta play his role. And just like Mega Man, she also has 2 Robot Masters that she has to face. But you already saw Skullman. Fortunately, Skullman is in Roll's route, so you actually don't have to face Skullman, but you do have to face Daggerman. For those that are familiar with Super Fighting Robot, that's the fan game which Daggerman appears, and Daggerman is a random son of a gun. You really don't want him to do what he's doing, where he's in the air doing a lot of his flash daggers in the air. You can hit him from the air when he does it, but it's very hard and kind of wonky to do so, just like everything else with Soul Trap. But that's a whole different story in and of itself. But yeah, like we said, this is supposed to be the Skullman fight, but since you already beat Skullman, all you just get is this Skeleton Joe, and you don't have to worry about that fight. So, we defeated already about 4 Robot Masters. Now here's 8 more to deal with. So yeah, with that, you're pretty much in full refight mode. So, and only a few Robot Master fights are different, since you got weaknesses now. But the thing about this is, you're also trading spots between Mega Man and Roll. This is why ammo consumption is important between both characters, because now you're gonna have to deal with weapon ammunition between both players. And when you defeat one, it goes off into the other player in kind of like a tag team fashion. So also, just to point out what was going through the chat, since we're dealing with familiar territory, the locks actually have to do with saving the 4 Robot Masters and the 8 Robos, which you saw in the refights. It plays a major role in how many Robot Masters that you're facing, and as Airhammer has very succinctly displayed, you can actually face up to 8 or 13 Robot Masters, depending on how you play the game. But once again, that kind of gets into some specific spoiler territory as to how to 100% the game. So we won't get into that. But in the meanwhile, pretty much just got Resistingframe going through the refights. You notice he used the weapon tank earlier. Pretty much the only weapon tank that we use, which we got in Missile Man stage, hidden between the clouds in the very beginning of the stage. You definitely want to use it as Mega Man, because you're going to be low on specific weapons, specifically the Shield Bubble, which is going to be used towards the end of the game for Mega Man, thanks to the end boss main gimmick. Ghost Woman getting a little carried away. So yeah, for the most part, a lot of the Robot Master refights pretty much are unchanged, except for Doom Woman, since we have her weakness, and the fact that we're gonna be fighting bosses as both Mega Man and Roll, specifically with Mega Man, since during the 8 Robos, Roll was doing all the fighting with the 8 Robos. Mega Man being forced to do 4 of them now. But these still pretty much simple and easy. So now, you notice that Proto Man has been kidnapped. You notice that there's a capsule here. Add 2 plus 2 and guess who we're fighting? So Proto Man, it's actually a pretty simple fight. His patterns are pretty telegraphed. All you gotta do is just recognize the pattern and dodge as see fit. But as Roll, don't take too much damage. Once again, Roll takes much more damage compared to Mega Man. Alright, looks like the fight is becoming much more stable now. There we go. That's Proto Man down. Once again, having to fight him. And now, yoink! So the last person you defeat, the last capsule you defeat, and the player that defeats it, that character gets swapped. He gets snatched, and for the final stage up to a certain point, you're gonna have to do this final remaining area as the player character that didn't get snatched.
Come on, energy drop. What happened? The energy drop.
The constant reminder of why we Mega Man speedrunners despise weapon drops. Can someone please remind?
Oh, and it happened again.
Can we remind some people that the energy gains that we get from Mega Man 8, where things are instant, is a good thing. But yeah, now we're about to go to the Wally machine of the fight, and it's a pretty interesting one. Depending on your opinion of it, it's one of the most clever or one of the most convoluted of fights. So using the charge laser, you're shooting the lights to open these eyes as fast as possible, but also using the charge laser as a weakness because it's the only one that deals more than one unit of damage, aside from the charge Mega Buster on these eyes. Get one more. There we go. Now for phase 2, where things get a little clever. You're actually supposed to fire the Beetle Jones into these exhaust tubes where these bombs are falling. It's easy with Roll, but with Mega Man, it's kind of a little harder. That's why you saw Resistingframe use a combination of Desert Storm and the Beetles to do the fight proper. And time is coming up on the final Wally kill. So yeah, switching back and forth, using the shield bubble. Time. GG's RF. Now that wasn't so bad now, wasn't it? As Wally escapes.
All this and Wily still escaped.
Just to let you know, there are actually 2 endings, but the second ending actually comes with 100%, saving all the robot masters and getting an extra little